Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. In the Mist, Analia Raven here, and I'm here to talk about the Maiden Goddess. In my last video I mentioned that in my last video I mentioned the Maiden Goddess Amaterasu, and then I was going to be doing a series on different maiden goddesses, and this is going to be an introduction to what of the many maiden goddesses that I'm going to be covering are going to be about. So without further ado, let's get into the video. I have my notes here so I don't forget anything that I want to say, because you know me, I get distracted a lot of the time, and that's just how it is on most days. So here we go. So when I was looking around on the internet, there wasn't really much about the Maiden Goddess. It mentioned the Maiden Goddess in the Maiden Mother Crone aspects of her, but they never really focused on her just by herself. And I looked around on my favorite YouTube channels that I am personally subscribed to, and I couldn't find any videos that weren't just a minute or two long about the Maiden Goddess. So I decided to do a whole series about the Maiden, because there are many maidens out there. We have Anat from the Egyptian culture. She's a very strong warrior goddess. We have Artemis and Diana, and a lot of others that we wouldn't necessarily look at as a maiden goddess, such as Sekhmet or Hathor. We have Aphrodite and many different others that I'm going to be focusing on this series about the Maiden Goddess. So what is the Maiden Goddess, and what does she represent in women's lives today? To me, personally, she represents freedom and power and spirituality, the beginnings of starting on your journey, and she is that spark before the flame erupts when you're making because when you make a fire and you get just that one spark before the flame erupts. And she's also the spark of inspiration within each of us. And so the Maiden Goddess of new beginnings, youth, and innocence, and purity. So you could see the Maiden Goddess in women's lives today by just looking at your small nieces or your teenage daughters, or even women that aren't necessarily mothers yet, like myself. I would consider myself still in the maiden aspect because I'm not a mother, and I'm still in that virgin state. And when I say virgin, I mean the old translation of virgin, meaning not without a partner, without a man or a partner that I dedicate myself to. I don't have that. I am complete and whole unto myself, and I take charge of my own actions and my own life. And that is what the maiden symbolizes. Maiden goddesses of many different cultures: Celtic, Egyptian, Roman, Greece. You can see that in their stories. She is the youth of a child, but she's also women that aren't necessarily in the category of motherhood, or in that life stage of I'm ready to devote myself to something else, like another person, or taking care of other people. The Maiden Goddess is she's kind of in a way seen as selfish, because she's mostly about her own journey and her own self. That's who the maiden is. And she is goddess of the dawn, and creativity, and keeper of the self, and expression of beauty, intelligence, and skill. You can see her intelligence and skill with Artemis and Diana and many different others. And she can help you manifest your actions and your self-confidence, because this is the journey of you coming into who you want to be, and who you want to represent, and how you want to represent yourself. This is you coming into your own power. And like I said, she is the face of young daughters and nieces, little sisters, and every young girl. You can see the Maiden Goddess within that. And she is completely independent. You can see many different stories of Diana and Artemis not wanting to take on a partner, but she does have many lovers. She can choose who she wants to lay with and who she doesn't. She's in charge of that, and she answers to no one but herself. And she is definitely aware of her sexuality. And you can see in Hathor, she's a very sensual goddess, a very sexual goddess. So is Aphrodite, and so is Diana. She takes on many different partners, but she doesn't settle down with anyone. And that's where the maiden is considered a virgin goddess, because she doesn't settle down with anyone. And she is often portrayed as a goddess of the wild, or goddess of the forests, and goddess of the hunt. She protects the creatures of nature, whether or not they're big or little. And she also is a fierce hunter, so she is seen as the goddess of death as well. You can see with Persephone, she's in this light at the first half of the year, symbolizing, fertility and growth and rebirth, and then she journeys down into the realm of the dead and becomes queen there. And so that also puts maidens as a goddess of the underworld. Inanna is a goddess of the underworld, and Persephone definitely is a goddess of the underworld. So, and then Artemis is a skilled hunter, also dealing with the realm of death. So you can see that maiden doesn't necessarily mean the dawn and light and rebirth. It can also mean transitioning into death, because the maiden goddess is about transitions, transformation. You could see with Psyche, her symbol is the butterfly, which is transformation, and death is definitely one of those changes in lives that goes through transformation, and it's a powerful transformation. And the maiden, in my opinion, definitely symbolizes death and rebirth in that cycle. And she is also the preserver of that cycle. She helps the mother and the crone preserve those in-between times. You could see her within the waning and waxing. The waxing is about bringing energy towards you, and that's the maiden's time. But the waning moon is the dark maiden, where you can embrace your dark maiden aspects, such as selfishness and recklessly independent seas that some may have. And so since the maiden is in the in-between times, the maiden often looks towards the mother for some advice, but you could see that the maiden is going away from the mother and making her own decisions. There's many different references to the maiden goddesses moving out of their mother's house, or definitely making those decisions. Kind of like I don't have any children, like I said before, but if I guess most of you would agree, like when teenage girls grow up, they're wanting less rules and regulations, and they're acting out on their wild side to find their own journey, and that's what the maiden symbolizes. But she still does look towards the mother for advice, and she also looks back mischievously at the crone goddess because the crone definitely knows the mischievous side of the maiden, and she often looks back at her with that mischievous grin, like, I know that you know what I'm going to do next, but we won't know. So the maiden, queen of the underworld, she beckons us to journey with her, to make that descent into the underworld and discover those mysteries, and with a bold attitude about it, like trying to confront our fears and do things that may not make us completely comfortable, but she challenges us to go deep into ourselves and descend with her into the underworld. And she is the one who, with that mischievous grin of hers, knows exactly what path and where the trips and falls are that we are going to take. But it is a path of discovery, and it is a path of journeying into the unknown with the maiden, because the maiden doesn't necessarily know exactly where she's going to fall, but she does know that she wants to take the journey, and she's going to, if working with the maiden, will take you on a spontaneous, adventurous ride. And she's always beckoning us to visit that realm of awakening, to come into that sense of yes, we are making our way to the underworld, to those mysteries, and then we're going to meet you on the other side and be rebirthed into that journey. She's similar to the Fool in the tarot deck, where she's stepping out into the air on a leap of faith, but she still has one foot grounded. So again, we have those in between times. So she encourages us to work with the Maiden. She encourages us to run through her wild woods and with her creatures and discover laughter again, discover that playfulness and innocence for those of us that are older. And when we're even like just looking at your children and watching them play with the excitement and your whole life ahead of you, and remembering that love, discovering new love, and always and rediscovering old love, like it was not old, like it was just new. Again, rediscovering those feelings that you've had can also lighten and bring you closer to the Maiden aspects of the goddess. All love and passions are within the Maiden. If we follow her life cycle through the Sabbats and through the year, we can see the Maiden being birthed at Yule time, where the days become longer again, and going into Imbolc and Ostara, and even into the summer solstice. You can see that she is growing up and becoming more of a woman, and she's definitely very flirty, and she definitely has those flirty eyes, and often known as the seductress in many different tales and stories. You can see, or enchantress, you can see that with Anya, or the Celtic goddess, the fairy lover. You can see that with Morgan Le Fay or Morgana Le Fay in the Avalonian tradition, where she's often seen as a seductress or an enchantress, enchanting men and lovers to be with her. And she's asking us to explore our wildness and our energy with vigor and daring boldness, and releasing ourselves and surrendering to that playfulness and those darker aspects in us too, that also makes us the seductress or the enchantress. And she wants us to know that sense of freedom that it comes with the spontaneous, adventurous side of the Maiden. And it's a journey of rediscovering ourselves when working with the Maiden Goddess. So that was just a little view of the Maiden, of her journeys, and I hope that you enjoy this video. And if you like this video, or if you like my channel, please don't forget to comment and subscribe. What are your deals? What are your deals with the Maiden? Have you come in contact with any of her aspects, and what was that like? I encourage you to comment down below, and also stay tuned for more videos on the Maiden. I'm going to be sharing different faces of the Maiden, different names like Artemis, Diana, as I mentioned before, and going in depth with their correspondences and certain things that you can do to work with those particular goddesses. So don't forget to like and comment and subscribe to my channel, In the Mist, Analia Raven.